The story opens with sketches of a young adult named Christopher Robin exploring the Hundred Acre Wood. During his walk, he encounters a group of peculiar adolescent creatures who appear to be a blend of human and animal. Despite their intimidating looks, the innocent Christopher ignores the potential danger and befriends them all. They introduce themselves as Eeyore, Owl, Rabbit, Piglet, and most importantly, Winnie the Pooh. Christopher begins providing them with food, and their bond strengthens with each passing day. The creatures gradually start behaving more like humans, even relying on Christopher for their sustenance. Unfortunately, their close relationship takes a dark turn when Christopher grows up and is forced to leave for college to become a doctor. Unable to visit anymore, Christopher leaves his friends behind. Without Christopher's guidance and food supply, and as winter approaches, the creatures face extreme starvation. Driven by desperation, the group is forced to resort to unthinkable measures, consuming one of their own, Eeyore, to survive. This traumatic experience warps their perception, leaving them deeply resentful of humans, especially Christopher for abandoning them. They vow to shed their human-like behavior, embrace their wild instincts, and remain forever silent. 5 years later, Christopher returns to the Hundred Acre Wood, longing to reconnect with his old friends. He brings his fiancée, Mary, along on the journey. As he leads Mary into the forest, he asks if she believes his stories about talking animals. Mary offers him a compassionate look and admits her skepticism, suggesting his animal friends were a figment of his imagination. Phrases like, "Who is Piglet?" and "Eeyore?" are absent from their conversation. Christopher and Mary eventually reach the creature's dwelling, which is now in a state of disrepair. A terrified Mary urges Chris to leave, but he assures her that his friends pose no threat. As they explore the area, Mary stumbles upon a skull, while Christopher remains oblivious to Eeyore's grave. Together they approach Christopher's old house with the creatures lurking nearby, and they proceed to enter the house. Mary discovers a destroyed drawing of Chris, shattering his memories of his childhood companions. A sudden sound sends them scrambling for cover until darkness falls. Seizing the opportunity while the creature sleeps, Mary and Chris make a desperate dash for the exit. However, Piglet ambushes them, wrapping a metal chain around Mary's throat. Witnessing his fiancée's demise, Chris flees in terror. Suddenly, Pooh appears before him. Chris desperately tries to rekindle their childhood bond, but Piglet emerges from the other side, trapping Chris between the two. The horrific truth dawns on Chris: his friends are forever changed. Like many who ventured before him, Chris disappears without a trace. Rumors of unexplained disappearances in the forest spread like wildfire. Reporters urge everyone to stay clear of the Hundred Acre Wood. The story then shifts to a new character, Maria. Her therapist recommends a digital detox to escape the pressures of her world. Inspired by this advice, Maria and her friends embark on a retreat in the woods. Unaware of the danger lurking nearby, they choose a secluded cabin for their getaway, the very same Hundred Acre Wood. The group of college students are initially thrilled with their luxurious accommodation, especially the inviting pool at the Grand Cottage. Upon entering the villa, Jessica collects everyone's phones, emphasizing the importance of disconnecting from technology for a successful retreat. The conversation among the girls revolves around their friend Tina, notorious for being chronically late or backing out at the last minute. Meanwhile, Tina arrives at the Hundred Acre Wood sign and calls her friends for directions. With no answer, she hesitantly ventures into the woods. Suddenly, a monstrous Winnie the Pooh emerges, sending Tina scrambling for refuge in an abandoned garage. When she cautiously peeks out, relief turns to terror as the murderous bear snatches her and repeatedly slams her head against the wood chipper, gruesomely mutilating her body. Back at the villa, after settling in, Maria confides in her friends about a past encounter with a stalker that left her deeply traumatized. They offer supportive smiles as she expresses feeling much better now. Over at Pooh's lair, a captive Christopher tries to reason with Pooh by reminiscing about their happy childhood memories. For a fleeting moment, Pooh seems to recall being Christopher's best friend and the promise of never being abandoned. However, sadness swiftly transforms into rage. Pooh brutally whips Christopher's back as further punishment, then places Mary's skull in front of him, eliciting a cry of despair from the captive. Meanwhile, Laura, unable to resist the allure of her phone, retrieves it secretly and indulges herself in the jacuzzi, snapping selfies for her online followers. As she scrolls through photos, a figure lurking in the background catches her eye. She hurriedly searches for the source but finds nothing, assuming it's a prank. Carelessly, she returns to the jacuzzi. Unaware of the approaching danger, Laura doesn't notice Pooh and Piglet silently creeping in. When she opens her eyes, she finds herself bound, Piglet standing guard, and Pooh revving a car engine. Her desperate pleas for life are met with silence as Piglet signals Pooh to proceed with a horrifying twist. The monstrous bear crushes her head. Alerted by Laura's scream, Alice and Zoe rush to check on their friend. Meanwhile, Maria and Jessica dash outside to find the car door hanging open. their worst fears are confirmed as they stumble upon Lara's mangled head. Panic-stricken, the girls huddle together, only to discover a chilling crimson message scrawled across the glass doors. Just then, the sound of shattering glass from afar sends shivers down their spines. Slowly approaching the source of the noise, the terrified girls find Pooh brandishing a massive knife outside. He encircles the cottage, plunging them into complete darkness by cutting the power. Faced with this sudden threat, Zoe and Alice head to the kitchen to grab weapons, while Maria remains convinced the intruder is her stalker. Zoe and Alice return, assuring her that this is a new danger entirely. Triggered by the horrifying situation, Maria remembers she brought a gun. However, while she and Jessica head to retrieve it, the group inadvertently splits into pairs. Meanwhile, Zoe and Alice rush to the pool area inside the house to secure the back door. Just as Zoe instructs Alice to flee in case of danger, Piglet appears out of nowhere. After rendering Alice unconscious, Piglet raises his hammer to strike her down, but Zoe manages to divert his attention. Zoe dives into the water as Piglet lunges, wielding his hammer. Alice regains consciousness only to witness Piglet brutally murdering her friend. The trauma triggers another faint. Jessica and Maria stumble upon the gruesome scene, Zoe's lifeless body floating in the pool. They watch in horror as Piglet and Pooh carry Alice away. Consumed by fear and determination, Jessica and Maria decide to follow the bloodthirsty creatures to find Alice. Later they find Alice bound at the Devil's Lair, while the deranged Winnie the Pooh indulges in a pot of honey. When he notices Alice awake, he approaches her with unknown intentions. Seizing their chance, Jessica and Maria find the coast clear and rush to free Alice. With escape in sight, they're abruptly halted by a loud scream. Thinking fast, Maria insists they can't leave anyone behind. Inside the dilapidated cottage, they discover Christopher hanging from a hook. Maria cautiously approaches his unconscious body. Chris awakens abruptly and pleads for help. Without hesitation, Maria and the girls begin untying the rope. Once freed, they're startled by a woman's desperate cries for help. Christopher urges the girls to investigate. They follow the agonizing screams to a badly injured woman bound by ropes. Jessica questions the woman about her attackers, and she identifies them as Pooh and Piglet. The woman reveals they possess the ability to speak broken English, but prefer a silent approach to their brutality. After freeing the woman from her restraints, the girls help her escape. However, outside they encounter a mirrored structure. The woman gets a horrifying glimpse of her scarred face reflected back at her, triggering a scream. The girls try to calm her down, but the woman snatches Maria's gun, fueled by a desire for revenge against the monsters who inflicted this pain. Fearful for their lives, Jessica, Maria, and Alice take cover. The monstrous Piglet emerges, ready for a brutal one-on-one battle. The woman confronts him, claiming he transformed her into a monster and demands retribution. Unfortunately, she discovers the gun is empty. As she backs away in fear, she bumps into Pooh. He brutally throws her to the ground and smothers her face with honey. Piglet then proceeds to devour her face in a horrifying display of savagery. Seeing the carnage, the girls flee in terror. Alice spots a hammer and lunges at Piglet in a desperate attack. With Alice gone, Maria and Jessica sprint into the forest, pursued by the relentless Pooh. Meanwhile, Alice manages to overpower Piglet, taking him captive. Regaining consciousness, Alice delivers a stinging slap to the monstrous Piglet, vowing punishment for his crimes. Unfortunately, her attack is short-lived. Pooh intervenes, brutally slaying Alice with his machete before resuming his bloody pursuit. Meanwhile, Maria and Jessica stumble upon a car approaching them. A group of rough-looking men emerge, initially skeptical of the girls' frantic explanation about the monstrous creatures. However, their curiosity piqued by the sight of Pooh. The men decide to hunt the abomination down. Jessica and Maria, fearing for the men's lives, take cover in the car and try to warn them, but their pleas are ignored. The four men, armed and confident, surround Pooh. Logan, the apparent leader, lands a powerful blow on the bear, but to their horror, Pooh remains unharmed. The audacity of the attack seems to further enrage him. He turns the tables, launching his own brutal assault. Seeing Pooh relentlessly advance, Maria springs into action. She cranks the car's engine and rams him with full force. The impact sends her head crashing against the steering wheel. Dazed, she watches in horror as Pooh drags Jessica from the car. Moments later he returns, displaying Jessica's severed head. Terror grips Maria as she tries to fend off Pooh with whatever strength she has left. However, he overpowers her. Just as Pooh raises his knife for the final blow, Christopher appears in a flash, ramming his car into Pooh and pinning him between the vehicles. Reacting instantly, Christopher rushes out of his car to help a shaken but alive Maria. Just as Christopher helps the injured Maria to her feet, Pooh stirs back to consciousness. With a burst of strength, he shoves the car aside and reaches for his knife. The monstrous bear grabs a terrified Maria by her hair. Christopher desperately pleads with Pooh to stop the bloodshed, offering to stay with him forever in the 100 Acre Wood if he spares Maria's life. For a fleeting moment, it seems Pooh considers the offer. But then, in a chilling break from silence, he speaks. His words are cruel and final. With a swift movement, he slashes Maria's throat, Stricken with grief and horror, Christopher witnesses Maria die in his arms. The realization dawns on him: his childhood friend is irredeemably evil. He watches numbly as Pooh continues to stab Maria's lifeless body. The film concludes with Christopher fleeing into the woods, leaving behind a scene of carnage and the chilling prospect of future terror at the hands of a monstrous Pooh. Thanks for watching. See you next time.